Hey everybody, I want to talk about this. I feel it's a serious issue, so I kind of need a cigar. Uh, I'm sure everybody knows now about what Trump said in regards to the mass shootings at the CNN town hall. Oh my goodness, what was his answer? Well, we need more mental health. We need more funding for mental health. Now, this has been said over and over again for the past 4 or 5 years. Every time there's a mass shooting and the left can't make a claim that this person was an evil right winger gun nut Trump supporter, oh, he had mental health issues. Oh, if only we had more funding for mental health. Now, for those of you who are 10, 15 years younger than me, I can remember when supposedly Reagan shut down all the mental institutions, all the left was claiming, oh, the crazies will be out on the street and violence will increase tenfold. I actually looked it up today, just a few minutes ago, and found out that Reagan didn't shut down any mental institution. What he did through an act of Congress, which means Congress agreed to this while he was president, that they were going to shift federal funding away from the government paying for mental institutions in each state and put some of that money into the state itself, and then the state itself would build the mental health facilities or create more funding for the current set of them or create community-based funding. Through the funding, create community-based ways of dealing with this. In other words, Reagan looked at this and said, the federal government just can't keep throwing money at the problem. What needs to be done is that we give the money to the states for their mental health budget, and then they go ahead and do with it what they think they're supposed to do. Also, what Reagan and Jimmy Carter before him did, and several other presidents and Congresses back then did, is that they signed into law that you couldn't just indefinitely institutionalize a person on a whim. I'm sure you guys have seen the stories of the evil husband who has his wife institutionalized back in the 50s and 60s for decades while he takes all of her money and runs off with it and has a good time. That was actually happening in some cases, but not as often as some others would like to think. But it was happening. And the state of mental institutions back in the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s were atrocious. But shutting these places down was just not a good idea. So what Reagan, Carter did was that they set it up so, no, you just can't throw somebody in a nut house indefinitely, whether you be the state or a relative. And so that allowed the state to say, okay, can we figure out a way to, help these people? Now you had Thorazine, which came out back in the 50s and 60s, and it was considered to be a miracle drug that could help deal with severe mental illness. And it did work. It had some bad side effects though, but it did work overall. But it wouldn't be until like the mid 80s where people were like, well, wait a minute now, this isn't exactly as good as we thought it was going to be. Oh my God, look at the side effects. This isn't good. So then why did all the mental health hospitals get shut down? Because the state didn't want to fund them anymore. They figured with Thorazine and other drugs, they could put the less crazy people back out into the street, free up beds for the really, really, really crazy people, which would be 1 out of every 100 crazy people. The guys who are hearing voices, the guys who are criminally insane, the Joker and all that, all the other Batman villains, those types of people. The thing is, there aren't a lot of people like that. There's plenty of them, but in one state, do you think there's more than 1,000 criminally insane or 1,000 permanently insane people that all need to be stuffed into one building? No. One of the great things about our society is that there isn't an extremely large amount of crazy people, regardless of what the media says. So then when you hear politicians say, well, we're going to put more funding towards mental health issues, how? You literally signed a bill into law back during Reagan's era that said the federal government is going to stop throwing money at this issue. The states should have sufficient funding of their own through their own tax system. You know, everybody in a state pays state taxes to fund mental health institutions. But the states didn't want to do it. They figured they could use the money for something else. So they began shutting down the mental institutions on their own and throwing people back out into the streets. The hospitals and the jails very quickly became the place where you deal with people with mental illness. And because of certain acts and laws passed back during Reagan and Carter's time, hospitals could not by law keep you indefinitely in the psych ward. Plus, they wouldn't want to. That's expensive. So you got the 72-hour psych hold, the 1-week psych hold. But the only reason you get that is that you have tried to hurt yourself directly, or maybe tried to hurt somebody else directly. And then they can say, okay, we'll keep you for more than a week. We'll keep you for 2 weeks. But at some point, you gotta get out because some other people need this bed, or, it's just expensive. We can't afford to pay for it. Also, there are laws that say that Medicaid and Medicare cannot pay for certain levels of medication and to keep you in the nut house. So there's that. Now, all of these laws were passed decades ago. Maybe we could change that. I'm sure the federal government wouldn't mind paying for Medicaid and Medicare to keep you in the nut house if you need to be in the nut house. But how is that going to work? Laws are going to have to be written. Funding is going to have to be redrawn. The old laws either just need to be gotten rid of and new laws written. What are you going to do? Whenever I hear, and I don't care if it is Donald Trump, we just need to deal with the mental health issue. We need more funding. How much funding? You're already putting over $1 trillion+ into welfare, and that's for the same people who make babies and can't take care of them, or don't want to work, whatever, disabled, whatever. What are you going to do? Give me more than just we're going to throw money at it, because that's what happened back there in the 80s. We're just going to throw more money at it, only in a different way. And guess what? None of the mental institutions got built. None of the community-based options really got built. You know what they created mostly with the money that got repurposed back in the 80s and the early 90s after Reagan signed that bill into law? They created not mental health. They created a few mental health clinics that people could willingly go to. And they repurposed basically the mental health system, which in each state repurposed itself to create these little buildings that basically housed a bunch of low rent, low rate psychologists people could then volunteer to come in and talk to them. I know, I've been inside them for several relatives. And I've seen how these things do. These people some of them really do care. These psychologists really do care, but they're basically just there to prescribe you more medication. They talk to you for about an hour and half an hour, and then send you on your merry way. And one guy that I remember talking to, this guy, he was just like, I'm just here to, because I'm halfway retired as a psychologist, and I just want to help out the community. But overall, he really just doesn't give a damn. The situation cannot be solved by more medication. It cannot be solved by forced institutionalizing these people, unless these people are a threat to society. So it's just not going to work. Plus, on top of that, the number of mentally ill people, truly mentally ill people, who go out and shoot up a school or shoot up a mall or something is extremely small. So out of one or two out of every 1,000 schizophrenics, only 1 or 2 of them might have the potential to go and shoot up a school or commit some atrocious crime or a set of atrocious crimes. How you going to deal with that? And then on top of that, let's just face it, most people who are insane, even if they know they're insane, they're not going to go willingly turn themselves into the nut house. So you can build all the mental institutions you want. Let's say the federal government decides to throw $200 billion at building mental institutions in the states. First of all, Can you be sure that that funding goes towards that? Two, where are you going to build them? You know, Republicans and Democrats alike. Not in my backyard. They don't want the nut house in a mile anywhere near their suburb or their urban center. So where are you going to build these places? Three, are you going to have enough staff for them? Do you have any idea how hard it is to deal with a mental institution full of crazy people, some of them physically violent? Try going into your local elderly care facility and see how tired, exhausted, and miserable the staff there is, and how they will always tell you that they are understaffed because they have a very hard time handling 100 elderly people ranging from having severe mental illness, i.e. dementia and stuff like that, to those who just need a lot of physical help. It's exhausting. It takes a serious amount of dedication. And Medicaid and Medicare would rather let the elderly person stay at home and spend a few $100s a month to maybe $1,000 a month, sending out some young home care nurse to sit with the woman for 3 to 10 hours a day and tend to her needs. I know, I have several relatives who have lived like that. There's not an easy solution to this that can just be put the right guy in office and he'll throw money at the problem. We tried doing that for decades. We were doing that all through the 1800s up until the 1960s, where they started deinstitutionalization. Yeah, this didn't happen overnight with Reagan. That's a lie. That's a fallacy the left came up with. No, we were deinstitutionalizing by the 60s, which means we waited, 80 years. We were institutionalizing and throwing people in nut houses up until the 1960s. We started out in the 1880s. We get to the 1960s, and then we start figuring out, oh, fuck, this isn't working. This isn't working. We got to change this. So, once again, I ask Trump, and I ask all of these other people, where are you going to get the money to put these crazy people in some place that can help them? Where are you going to find the orderlies, the psychologists? Or are you just going to do what we were really doing by the 80s, just throwing them in a nut house, straight jackets, white rooms, bouncy houses, and giving them enough drugs to keep them drooling retards? Because that's what's going to happen again. Unless you're willing to set up one of these places, pay the orderlies $70,000 a year, pay the psychologist $100,000 to $200,000 a year to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to deal with this. Because that's what we're doing now with the elderly. Only these people ain't getting paid nowhere near as much. So then how are you going to deal with this problem? You would practically have to create an entirely new bureaucracy all over again to help deal with this situation on the federal level. And it would have to trickle down to the states. And then the states would have to deal with it too. And with the current level of corruption in this country, how much of that money is going to go into some politician's pocket? Hell, we can't get the roads built around here in South Carolina, northern part of South Carolina, because some of the money that's supposed to go to fix the roads goes into some politician's pocket. Goes down to fixing roads down in the lower part of the state because, well, I don't know, bullshit. So I don't see how this is going to work. And, well, it's going to be the same damn thing it's been for the last 10 years with this, every time we've had a mass shooting. Mental health issues. Okay, we're going to put funding to it. They never do. The state doesn't. The federal government doesn't. So it's a talking point. It's a way to shut people up. Well, what are you going to do about all this mass shooting? Mental health issues. Don't worry, we'll put money to it. Then they never do. Because they know that's not going to solve the problem. Republican and Democrats alike. Liberals and conservatives alike. There's just no solving the crazy problem in this country. Not unless you want to strip somebody of their human rights and dignity. And go back to the 50s and the 40s where you could just institutionalize a person on a whim. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? Most of you will say no. Because you know it could happen to you. Somebody could just pop up and say, we think you're crazy, put you in a nut house. Especially with the way liberals look at conservatives right now. Do you really want that? they'd have Tim Pool, me, Aiden Paladin, and Spoon probably in nut houses by now. They'd be like, oh God, look at all that conservative rhetoric, and they're monarchist. Oh my God, they're obviously insane. They have to be put in a nut house. There's just no good solution to this. Not one that would actually help solve these problems, especially because a lot of crazy people, people who are genuinely insane, they don't want to go to the nut house. They just want help, but they don't want to go to the nut house. One of the reasons why deinstitutionalization accelerated so rapidly after the 60s, because there were a lot of crazy people who said, well, wait a minute, now just give me enough drugs and I can get out there on my own. And everybody's like, well, okay, fine. Fine, go on about thy merry way. We can use the spare beds. But there is no solution where I can see right now where you just throw money at the problem. We're going to have to do a little bit better on this one. Would I like some return to some mental institutions? Yeah. 3 or 4 per state would be nice. And should the federal government help fund it? Yes. I think that would work. Now, would that reduce the number of shootings? No. It just help put crazy people in the crazy house where they need to be. But it wouldn't stop any of the mass shootings, because a person who's insane enough, if their insanity is truly based on they're going to go out and kill people, the voices are telling them to do it, whatever, that person, I can assure you, they're not going to walk up to the local police officer and say, oh, police officer, I've been having thoughts of homicide recently. You know, I'm looking over there at the elementary school up from my house, or from my homeless encampment, and I really want to go kill those kids. I just really need to, and I've got a handgun. Can you put me in jail, please? Can you send me off to the local nut house? I'm admitting I want to kill people here. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. We all know that's not going to happen. And perhaps the rare instance that it does, they probably call a preacher before they call a psychologist. Maybe they should call a preacher before they call a psychologist. But at the end of the day, this is not going to be solved by just rhetoric and saying we need more mental health funding. That's not going to solve this. What's going to solve this is action, common sense, and a way of thinking about this in a way that makes sense, that can really help. All right, folks. Everybody, please take care. And I want you all to have a good and blessed day. Think about what I've just said. Think about this video for a little bit. Maybe altogether we can come up with a solution that might be slightly helpful at least. If we can get some of the crazy people off the street who are or do have a potential for severe violence, a few $100 billion, I don't mind spending for that. I really don't. I don't mind my tax dollars going to, even if it's just a drop in the bucket, even if we drop the mass shootings by 10%. 10% I can handle for $100 billion or $200 billion. Yeah, we throw 50, 60, $100 billion at Ukraine all the damn time. I'm pretty sure we can afford $100 billion, $200 billion to build mental institutions for all these people that actually will take care of them and help them. Just a thought. All right, everybody, take care.